This is Hockey Talk, where we talk everything hockey. I am John.
Mike.
All right, Mike, and let's go. The first topic up for discussion this evening is the Buffalo Sabres and their 6-1 loss to the Canadiens the other night in their seemingly never-ending rebuilding phase. Mike, it seems to me like the Sabres have been in a rebuilding mode for like 25 or 30 years. So I look back, I said, well, let's see what's up with the Sabres. Well, they haven't been in the playoffs since 2010, 2011.
Well,
That's a long time. That sets an all-time record in the NHL longest postseason appearance drought. What's even more interesting is this record ties the Sabres with the New York Jets for the longest active postseason drought across all four professional sports leagues in North America. Mike, is there any hope at all for the Buffalo Sabres?
before the season, I thought they would definitely be a contender for that wild card spot, and up until the last 10 games or so, they
Oh, yeah.
were, and then the wheels fell off. So it's tough to say what the issue is there. I mean, they go on good runs, and then all of a sudden, they go on a run like they're on now, and they just can't get any traction. I mean, there's some games that they've had leads, and then they blow the lead, and then they end up losing the game, and they just can't find a way to remain consistent, and other than consistently losing, um,
Right.
and and get any traction going here. So I really don't know what the answer is there. I mean, they've got a lot of younger guys and not a ton of veteran guys. So I mean, and if you look at the Anaheim Ducks, it's the same thing. They don't have a ton of veteran guys, and they're struggling. So I'm not sure if it's just the culture. There's not really a lot of veteran leadership there, but like I said, with all the young guys on that team, and if you look at any NHL team, the majority of the ones that are struggling have a ton of young players, with the exception, I guess, of Nashville. But other than them, the teams are fairly young. I mean, Chicago's got a little bit of veteran depth, but most of the teams that are really struggling are quite young, and they're not surrounded by like a big group of veterans. So I think that you kind of need to have that balance to kind of weather these type of storms, I guess, if you want to say.
They did lose. It's 11 in a row, right? I forgot to mention that in my little spiel
Yeah,
there.
it's been a rough go here. So
They had the lead against the Leafs the other night and they lost. They ended
yeah,
up losing. And I mean, if the Leafs are beating you, well, at least have had a good year, but still, you just never know. Well, that's going to lead me into our second question, talking about the Leafs, and that's John Tavares. Now, I know that he's in contract discussions on signing an extension with the Maple Leafs. Tavares with his second hat trick the other night, of the season, so that's pretty good for him. He looks pretty good. He's 34 years old, Mike. He's in the last year of a 7-year, $77 million contract. Mike, do you think Tavares is going to sign that extension with the Leafs? He's 30 games in this year. He is around a point a game. He has 15 goals and 13 assists. I think the guy looks pretty good out there. What do you say?
yeah, he's played well. The funny that you say that is, last year he had a really strong first half, and then he kind of really
He did,
slowed
yeah.
down the second half. And then they had him on the third line, but then again, that was Sheldon Keefe coaching the team, and I was never a fan of Sheldon Keefe. So
Same
perhaps
here.
perhaps that was the issue last year. So I mean, other than that, other than being hurt, he's been a very consistent player. Um, this year, like I said, so far so good. We'll see what happens, I guess, going into the second half of the season if he can maintain it. Um, and maybe like I said, last year was just a 1 year thing. But if it becomes a habit, then it's going to be a little tougher. But I know he wants to stay in Toronto. He's from the area, so he left the Islanders to sign there. So he definitely wants to stay. It's a matter of, I think, will he accept a team friendly deal to
Right,
stick
which is
around?
probably what he's going to be offered. Is that right?
I would guess so. I mean, if he sticks around for a deal around 5-6 million, roughly, maybe less, I think he's going to stay. But if he's looking for $7-8 million, they're not going to be able to afford it. And even getting in 5 or 6 million is going to be a challenge for them, just because the first line makes like, because Marner's up for a deal too. So
He is, yes.
and I think he's the priority over Tavares, or at least he should be. Um, it's going to be tough to say. Both of those contracts are going to come down to maybe which one can we keep and afford. So I'm not quite sure. I know he wants to stay. I think the team wants him to stay, but with Marner probably looking at making 12 to 13 million dollars, I would guess. Uh, can they fit both of those contracts in? That's what it's going to come down to, I think.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure that Marner's going to make at least 11 million and probably 12 is what I'm guessing.
I would think so. I mean, if he was to go on the open market, I think he's going to get between you know, between 12 and 13, 11 and 13, in that range,
Yep.
for sure. So, and I know Toronto's not going to want to move him before the deadline because he's a key piece to their playoffs this year. So, and you know what? He's played excellent this year. Like with Matthews out, he carried that team. I think Berube's a big fan of his. So,
He is.
and
I
I
think
think
they get along quite well. Yeah.
that's part of the reason why I think that they didn't move him in the summer is because Berube wanted to try to get the best out of the guys that are currently there. And I mean, so far he's done a great job. And Craig Berube is a great coach. I mean, I've always liked Berube from way back when he was gooning it up with the Flyers. So um, it seems there's a lot of former Flyer players that turn into good head coaches, like Tocchet and Berube, but anyways, Pat Quinn back in the day.
Yeah.
So
Pat Quinn. Yeah.
yeah, so unfortunately, if only it would translate on the ice for the Flyers there. But
Well, I used to say when Tavares was with the Islanders that he made everybody around him better.
yeah,
That team had no right, I didn't think, for being in the playoffs some years, and they would make it. And I thought it was Tavares that was bringing the team with them.
yeah,
And when he
you're
got
right.
to Toronto, he didn't have quite the same role after the first year, but I still think he makes players around him look better. The only problem for him is Marner makes players around him look even better.
Mm, yeah.
So, but
Well,
yeah, hopefully they can both stay on the team. We'll see how it goes.
yeah, and the thing too, like you said, with Tavares and the Islanders, like the Islanders, from the time he was there, they're still the same team,
Yeah,
but they don't have Tavares; they have Barzal instead,
yeah,
and they're treading water because they have no support. Um, like they have, like right now, the Islanders have Barzal and Bo Horvat are the scorers. I mean, they have the rest of their guys on their top lines. You know, they're depth players on most teams, like
has-beens
second,
and
third line
wannabes.
guys at best. So, and I mean, that goes all the way back from the time that he was there
Yep,
back then. So, he's got a lot more talent to play with here in Toronto than what he had in New York. So,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. All right, well, let's go on to the third topic. Now, the third topic for this evening is the Stanley Cup rematch we had. Now, I know this has happened already, I believe, once this year, but between the Oilers and the Panthers. Now, the Oilers, they had a 4-2 lead in the second period. And I know the Panthers, they scored three in a row, and ultimately they won the game 6-5. So, I mean, I didn't get to see the game, Mike, but I saw the highlights. I did some reading on it. It looked like it was a pretty good game from what I saw anyway. Now the Oilers are 8-2 in their last 10. And that's with that loss. The Panthers are 7-2-1 in their last 10. So I mean, you can't argue with their last 10 games each. Which team would you rather be right now, Mike? Would you rather be the Edmonton Oilers or the Florida Panthers?
personally, you got to go with the Stanley Cup champ. So for me, I would say the Florida Panthers. And not to knock the Oilers at all. I mean, they're playing great as well, but I got a bit of a soft spot for the Florida Panthers. I like a lot of their players. I've got a bunch of them in my hockey pools and stuff too. So, but yeah, I didn't get to see a lot of the game either. I saw most of the highlights because I was playing hockey on Monday night when they
Right.
played.
Yep.
But I was keeping track, and it was like you said, it was 4-2 for Edmonton, and I'm like, oh geez, the Oilers look like they're going to win this game. And then I get home, and it's Florida, by the time I got home, the game was over. Florida won 6-5. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta watch the highlights and stuff. So, but not overly surprised that it was a high scoring game. I mean, it's two very offensive teams and some that sometimes struggle defensively, like particularly more so the Oilers struggle a little more defensively than Florida does. But yeah, I wasn't shocked to see a score like that. To be honest with you, anytime you see a Florida Edmonton game, it's going to be probably a shootout for the most part. So
Right. Yeah.
especially in the regular season where the coaches don't tighten up the reins as much on the defense, I guess. So, but yeah, so like I said, I lean a little bit more towards Florida, but I still think that this is going to be Edmonton's year. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, a 6-5 game, which is a lot of goals scored in one game, that leads us into our fourth topic for this evening. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit in time here, Mike. Last Thursday, now this it's Thursday today, so it's a week later. Last Thursday was December the 12th. There was 14 games scheduled that night in the NHL. The Oilers scored 7 goals against the Wild. The Lightning scored 8 goals against the Flames, and the Penguins scored 9 goals against the Canadiens. I know we talked about this before. I mean, we were talking about it last week or the week before. I can't remember which one it was now, but this is a crap ton of goals, Mike, between these three teams in one night.
Yeah,
Could this trend continue all year? Because goals this year are down just slightly from the final last year. So last year, after everything was added up, it was 3.08 goals per game, which is good. Anything over 3 is considered high. And right now we're at 3.03 goals per game. So what do you think, Mike?
that's per team, I will assume.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
per
okay,
team,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's awful low scoring if it's for the whole game.
Yeah,
So,
I did say
uh,
game, but it's per team per game, yeah.
right, yeah. So I hope it continues. I mean, who doesn't love watching a hockey game that's high scoring? That way there, it's not. The end of the game isn't like predetermined, like midway through the second period. And when I say predetermined, I mean like if one team is ahead by like back in the clutch and grab era when a team was ahead by 2 or 3 goals halfway through the game, I mean, the game was basically over. So, now that there's a lot more goals being scored, and I mean, there's, a lot more comebacks. Like last night, Anaheim came back and beat Winnipeg with like, very little time left. Utah
Yep.
came back and beat Vancouver last night, too. So, it makes for more entertaining and exciting hockey, which should draw more fans out. And I'm sure it has. I mean, I haven't seen the attendance, statistics for the season, but with the salary cap continuously going up, the league is clearly making profits for that to happen. So I mean, yeah, I think it's great for the game. I love watching a hockey game that you're going to see a bunch of goals. So I hope it continues. I think it probably will.
So my next point is a contentious issue with me. Is there any way this trend could continue into the playoffs? Is this even possible? And I'm going to just preface this because I remember the Stanley Cup Finals last year, the final game, Game 7. The Oilers were down by a goal. I think it was midway through the second period or 3/4 of the way through the second period or whatever. And the Oilers just couldn't score a goal. They could hardly get a chance. They had a couple chances, like it was basically shut down. Like there was none of this what's going on here, December the 12th or even last night. There was none of that,
Right.
and you didn't even get a feeling like you just knew that the Oilers were not going to come back and tie that game because of the way it's played in the playoffs. What do you think? Is there any
Well,
chance this could ever leak into the playoffs? It's like the league doesn't want it to happen in the playoffs. They call the games differently in the playoffs too. I wish they wouldn't, but they do.
well, here's the thing: when you go from regular season to the playoffs, the referees tend to let a little bit more slide um, than they do in the regular season. I know we talked about this in the past.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
So I mean, there's that part. Plus, I mean, the players I think are more more thinking that they don't want to make a mistake, so they'll pass up perhaps an offensive chance to make sure that they don't make a mistake and give up a goal just because it's the playoffs. Now, with that being said, usually the first game or two of each series tends to be a little bit more high scoring than when you're getting into the game sixes and game sevens, because then nobody wants to make a mistake and everybody plays a little more of a conservative game. Um, that's what I find in the playoffs. I mean, um, I mean, with that Edmonton Florida game last year, and there was a few high scoring games out of that series, but
There was, yeah.
once it got down to game seven, nobody wanted to be the guy to make the mistake that cost them a Stanley Cup winning goal. So that's part of the thing when it gets to playoff time is some of these teams they'll just kind of rein in the offense a little bit for the sake of not making a mistake in the defensive zone. So, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see the regular season scoring carry on into the playoffs. You might see some games like that, though. I'm not saying there won't be any, obviously, but
Especially the first round.
yeah, the first round there'll be a little bit more, just because you got 8 teams in there, and in some instances, a couple of the teams that do get in are, they're playing the top ranked team. They're probably going to get, smoked pretty good. Not always, but in general, the top ranked team generally wins those series. I mean, and then you're going to get into some of these games where, if someone's down by, 3 goals going into the third period, they've got to take a lot of offensive chances, which is going to cause more defensive mistakes, which will result in more goals. So it all depends on the game flow, I think. But any tight game is going to probably stay a tight game for the most part. So yeah, unfortunately, like I said, I don't see the big scoring increases carrying over into the playoffs. We're probably going to see, very similar to what we see every other year, is that it's going to come down a little bit.
All right. Well, so it sort of leaks into the playoffs, I guess you could say, kind of.
Right.
And then when things get tighter and later on, it tightens up.
Yeah.
To be expected. To be expected. All right, Mike. Well, let's go into our hockey profit segment where you are indeed the hockey prophet. Although I must admit, a lot of these questions, some of these questions that we've gone over, you do get them wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay. I mean,
I'm curious of what my record actually is, but yeah.
it's all right because eventually you're going to break that tie. You were very good last year in the playoffs when you were recording who you thought was going to win.
Yeah,
So,
I was. I was good in the playoffs. Maybe I'm more of a playoff guy than a regular season.
well,
But
this is more contentious, but it's all right. Okay, so are you ready, Mike?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, question number one is a bit of a long one here. So, Mike, a listener wrote in on our YouTube page and they wanted to know a few of your favorite jerseys. Of course, not including the Flyers because you're always going to pick the Flyers. So maybe you could just list a few of the jerseys that you like from other teams.
Well, for me, I've always liked the San Jose Sharks jerseys. Just the teal and the look and the logo. I've always liked the San Jose Sharks. The other ones that I liked are oh geez, let me think. The Vegas jerseys. I like the Vegas jerseys. They're pretty good.
Yeah, so do I.
Um,
Yeah.
Good color scheme. The Capitals. I've always liked the red, white, and the blue. And then when they switched to the I don't know what shade of blue it was with the eagle on the chest.
Right. Yeah.
That was another jersey I liked. Their black jerseys are nice. Like I always like the Capitals jerseys. Um, those are the three that kind of stand out the most to me for jerseys that I like. But yeah, yeah, I think those are the three that stand out, other than the Flyers jersey, anyways. So,
Okay. Well, let's go on to question number two.
all
Is
right,
Ovechkin going to come back before Christmas or after?
after he started
After.
skating in a non-contact jersey at practice, so I don't see him playing before the Christmas break, though.
All right. Number three. Next NHL coach to lose their job. There's a number of them now. What do you think?
It's probably the guy that I predicted to win the Coach of the Year award, Peter Laviolette. Uh, Something's got to change in New York. They can't trade
Uh,
all the players. I know they just
no,
traded
they can't.
Capo Caco, and they traded Truba a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Hasn't made any difference so far. So
Number 4, Kucherov had 6 points against Calgary on our famous December the 12th there, and an 8-3 beating of the Flames. Will Kucherov score 7 points this year in a game?
will he score 7 points in a game?
Yeah, do you think he's going to get
Geez,
7?
no, no, I
No.
don't think that's possible.
Okay, well, that's fair. I would say no as well. Number 5, Mike, and I'm sure you'll be glad when this is over with. On the same Thursday, Scott Langdon scored 4 goals against the Red Wings in a 4-1 win for the Flyers. The last time the Flyers had a 4-goal scorer, that was when John LeClair did it in 2002. How many
Not
goals will
surprised.
how many goals will Locking pot this year? He has 7 in 31 games. What do you think, Mike? And 2 of those were empty netters, but
I think
still
he's about a 15 goal guy.
15 goals. All
15
right.
rough, and I'm ballparking it. I'd say right around 15, give or take. Um, yeah, he's and I'll be honest with you, that empty net goal.
Hey, he passed the
Hathaway,
second one off. He passed
I
it off.
agree. Hathaway could have put that in, and then
He
he
gave it
he
back
passed
to
it
him. Yeah.
back to him and then he obviously put it in because it was kind of obvious that Hathaway didn't want to put it in when he gave it back to him when he could have put it in easily himself. So yeah, no, 15 goals, probably no more, no less, right around there.
I was like, what? How did he get 4 goals? And I'm watching them. I'm like, oh man, 2 empty netters.
Yeah, he's a third to fourth line role right now. I think they have him on the fourth line, so not even sure
Still,
he's gonna still be with the team by the end of the year because there is some chatter that he might be one of the guys moved. So
I mean,
we'll
if he was
see.
to get 15 goals as a fourth liner, third, fourth liner, that's not bad. I mean, it's not bad for the
Well,
amount of minutes he probably gets.
no, but he's generally a third line player with the Flyers. However, uh, like Tortorella in his last post game or pregame talk that he had is he's trying to find a center that can play with Mitchkov. And I mean, he kind of called Morgan Frost out because he's like, Morgan Frost is in the spot right now, but he's not the guy. He's not the answer. We've tried it. It's the results aren't consistent. They need to get a better centerman for Mitchkov, which they do. Like, and then they even the question was even thrown to at him to suggest that maybe moving Mitchkov to center, and he shot that down pretty quick. It's like no, we're not going to put. We like what he's doing on the wing. We're not going to move him to center.
Right.
It changes his responsibilities. So, um, but I know we're kind of getting a little off topic there,
That's all right. That's all right.
but
You,
anyways, yeah. So Torts was very very clear on that, and because they had talked about Lawton in particular, like it was after the game when he had scored the 4 goals, and he said some good things about him, but he's like it's a matter of being consistent, and quite frankly, he other than that one game, he's been very inconsistent all year. So
well, he had 4 goals in one game. He has 7 in total. That means he only had 3 goals in 29 games.
exactly. So, and I'm being very generous when I say 15. So, it could be between 10 and 15 for all I know, but
well, Well, that took you about 3 minutes to answer those. I stopped the timer a little while ago once we started talking.
right.
But usually at this point of the night, I would ask you if there's anything else you want to discuss. But I want to actually ask myself because there is something else I want to bring up. So,
Okay.
and that is there any comment on the Detroit Flyers game and the refereeing fiasco that happened the other night?
Yeah, Torts was livid.
Was
Like,
he fuming? And I don't blame him either.
don't blame
I
him.
don't blame him.
As soon as the referee puts the hand up, you got to make the call. You can't put your hand up and then change your mind.
But
Like,
that's what he did, though.
it's absolutely what he did. Um, because here's the thing: as soon as he put his hand up, Urson starts skating to the bench. The Flyers put another guy on the
Yep.
ice. Like,
And then they tried to
that,
call him for too many men.
what's that?
Then they tried to call him for too many men.
Yeah. So, it's, I don't know what kind of discipline that referee was going to get or if has gotten, but I mean, you can't do that. Like, once you put the hand up, you got to make the call, whether you make the mistake or not, whether you know, it's just not, you just can't change your mind. That's just not how it goes. Like, it's the first time I've ever seen something like that
I
too.
was going to
I don't
ask you, have
recall
you
if
ever seen that? Because I've never seen it
I've
before.
never, I mean, and I know way back in the day, maybe it's happened, but they've never had the camera angles and that sort of thing for anybody to really catch and notice it. But who knows? But I've never seen it before. Um, so yeah, he was pretty peeved over that, and then there was another non-call in the game. So yeah, I think one of the Flyers got knocked down on a play or whatnot that could have been a call, but it was let go. So yeah, I didn't hear his post game press conference. I don't know if he was
But,
asked about it after the game. Something that I'm
oh,
gonna,
I'm sure he was.
yeah, it's something that I'll definitely check to see because I'd be curious to see what he says because he doesn't generally hold back. But I mean, with that being said, I haven't heard anything about the NHL finding him or anything, so maybe he didn't say anything too bad. Maybe he just kind of dismissed it and didn't want to get himself in trouble. Maybe.
Well, I can tell you what he was saying to the ref during the game because you could read his lips. He's like,
Yeah.
he had his fucking hand up.
Yeah, and he was pointing at the tablet too, and
Yeah, and he said it
yeah,
like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, "Hey, man, he did." So,
yeah,
and then I mean, not to mention all that, but then I see that Frost he made a nice big fat juicy giveaway there, right, which cost the 3-on-1 that Detroit scored on there.
yeah,
So I'm thinking, oh, Frost, he'll be on fourth line there come next week.
yeah. Well, like I said about Frost, is right now he's the best center to play with Mitchkov, but like I agree with Tortorella, he's not the answer. They need somebody that is a little bit, better with puck control and a little bit smarter. I know Frost is a younger guy, but it's just not a fit. Like, Mitchkov is a very good playmaker, very good shooter, and to be honest, they've probably wasted at least a handful of goals this year just from not having the chemistry on that line at all times. So,
Right, right. Well, I mean, there's nothing Tortorella can. You can't make players appear, so you
well,
can only do
that's
what you
that's
got.
exactly that's exactly what he was saying. He's like, we're forcing this to work, but it's kind of a futile process because they know it's not the answer. But he's like, I don't have anybody else I can put in that spot that's gonna really be better. So, but yeah, it's
Well,
unfortunate.
the the Flyers are not the only team in the league that are having center issues. So I mean,
Right.
we'll have to wait and see what happens. Maybe they can trade for somebody. Is that even possible?
Uh,
Or would they
it's
even
going to be
bother?
tough to find a center it'd have to be a pretty complex trade for that to happen. But
Yeah,
I think the plan for next year is they want to have Luchenko in that spot next year,
right.
who played a little bit there at the start of the year this year and then got sent back to junior. So um, I foresee Luchenko being the guy to play with Mitchkov next year. They're probably going to start right off in training camp with that because they've already alluded to it a little bit that's why they've been drafting so many centers the last in the draft this year. The first three picks were centermen, so and that's what they're looking for is someone. And Luchenko's fast and he's intelligent. He's a good player. So was he the best player available when they picked him? Probably not. However, they're picking for a fit for someone to play with Mitchkov, and I can understand that to a certain degree because you can't go get number one centermans. Other teams aren't going to give them up easy.
What,
They
Sidney
generally
Crosby's
don't.
don't just drop in every team's lap all the time? No?
No, apparently not. And and when it comes to free agency, with the Flyers cap situation for the last several years, they can't pay the money to get a centerman that's going to be a huge difference maker. So unfortunately, but so they've got to kind of look from within, and hopefully Luchenko's the answer. I mean, he's going to get every chance in the world there next year when they start. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, they really needed to win that game the other night against Detroit, and they did not. It would have been nice to see them win that game, but we'll see what happens, Mike. Who knows?
Mm.
They could win a few in a row here. We'll see. So, if I think we're going to end it there for this evening. So, folks, like, share, and subscribe, and remember, let us know in the comment section where we went wrong, because I'm sure we went wrong somewhere here tonight. And we will see you next week. Later.
Later.